Now, if you've seen some of my videos in the past, you'd know that I was a total drama nutcase when I was younger. I was a pretty naive child, and this was one of the shows I was heavily into. After the 3rd season, however, I did fall off that train. Still, I have very fond memories of it to this day. The concept was one of the most unique out there. Even though the storyline was predictable, I still had my enjoyment with the unique and clashing personalities of these 22 teens. Then it had me thinking, which character was the most interesting and are the most developed out of the bunch? Well, what better way to see which character is better than who other than a good old-fashioned bracket? Good morning, everyone. My name is Jason Blade, and this is a special of Total Drama Bracket. Before we get into this one, I would like to take the time to get into the rules. This will only conclude the original 22 contestants from the first season, and we will talk about their character development throughout the first 3 seasons, which means no Alejandro, no Sierra, and no Blaney. This tournament will consist of 5 rounds. The preliminary round, which will consist of 6 matches that will finalize the first round, the Sweet 16, the Elite 8, the Final 4, and the Championship round. This tournament will be within multiple videos, and all results is 100% biased because it's my opinion. So yeah. The seedings were completely randomized to make things interesting. I believe that's it. Here's the official look of the bracket. We will start off with the preliminary rounds. This round will have Justin vs. Beth, Cody vs. Bridget, Trent vs. Eva, Harold vs. Lindsay, Heather vs. Jeff, and Courtney vs. Gwen. Yikes, that last one. Well, without further ado, let's get things started with our first bout, Justin vs. Beth. Now, to be honest, both characters aren't really that interesting. They were in the Island and Action seasons. Both of them didn't make it very far in the Island, while both played key roles in the action. Especially Beth, who turned out to be in the final 2. Beth was your typical nerdy girl in the beginning. Since she was really desperate to make friends and wanted to get far in the game, she was easily manipulated by Heather to form an alliance. In the Up the Creek episode, she missed some important information about not taking anything from Boney Island, or you're gonna get that big curse. This caused her team to be on a losing streak. When they found out later on, she was eliminated. During that losing streak, she did tell off Heather. That was one of the brighter points of the island. In the action, however, there wasn't really a lot to her that was very interesting. She did gain more confidence when she took off her braces between the 2 seasons. She also stood by with Lindsay because she was her best friend. She also talked about her boyfriend throughout the season and made out with Harold. She also had a couple of gripes with Courtney, but not much else to say on that regard. Justin, on the other hand, he went from being basic to being interesting as he transitioned from island to action. In the island, he was no more than a pretty boy that simply looked good. His time in Island was cut short due to just being a stepping stone for Heather due to easily manipulating most of the team to vote him off. So of course, they didn't see much worth to keep him around and develop him in the island. In the action, man, they turned the tables on him. They turned him into more of a man who uses his looks to manipulate other contestants to do his bidding, especially when it comes to Beth and Lindsay. But as the season went on, he lost the 2 of them because they got used to seeing his face. This put him into a life crisis of losing his hotness, but in the end, he ended up getting eliminated after losing his shot at invincibility due to being manipulated by Courtney. While yes, Beth was featured a lot more compared to Justin, nothing really changed for her to be more interesting to me. While for Justin, he went from being an extra body to an interesting competitor immediately. Heck, we can even count the 1.5 special when the $1 million was up for grabs then. With that in mind, I'd have to put Justin into the Sweet 16 because of the changes that were made into his character to be more than just his good looks. Next up, we have Heather vs. Jeff. Honestly, this is very one-sided. Technically, both of them were very frequent in all 3 seasons. However, Jeff was more so on the sidelines hosting Total Drama Aftermath and Action and World Tour, while Heather was in the actual competition for an extended period of time. We'll see how it goes though. Jeff started off as your lovable party nut in the island. While he certainly had a bit of villainous aspects to him from a couple of episodes where he helped Duncan mess with Harold, but he is generally a good guy throughout his tenure on the island. He finished just outside the top 5, getting eliminated due to his very kind and chill personality. His relationship with Bridget was cute, but typical in the island. But it was put to the test in action. He was one of the first to eliminate it along with Bridget because they cannot stop trying to eat each other's faces off. Then they were offered to host Total Drama Aftermath, an obvious attempt to cash in on the season by Fresh TV. The Aftermath is where they discuss with the recent eliminated contestants about their time in Season 2, which is mainly filled with cheap drama and comedy moments. As the Aftermath went on, Jeff became more of a jerk, and Bridget was fed up with his mistreatments of his friends and was close to dumping him. But he realized the error of his ways and things got patched up. Kind of. In World Tour, his relationship was almost in shambles again because Bridget almost made out with Alejandro, but instead made out with a pole. He got over it. Oh, and something with having Blatantly as a co-host as well in World Tour for a bit that annoyed him. Now for Heather. She started off as the main villain for the island. Her intelligence and being able to take control of the game in various strategies made her a threat immediately. She was responsible for several eliminations and was easily a character you would love to hate. When she was finally eliminated in the final 3 and cutting her loss, all puns intended there, everyone sitting at home celebrated that she was one hair away. I'm gonna stop now. In action, her role was somewhat reduced. She tried to make a variety of alliances, but nobody budged. Plus, they couldn't help themselves to have bald and hair jokes all over the season. She was eliminated just before the merger, but she kind of made things up with Lashana and were considered frenemies. In the World Tour, she plays a clean game surprisingly. She mainly tries her best to outdo her male counterpart, Alejandro. Heck, even trying to prevent other players to be used as his pawn. In the end of the season, she was able to get the victory over Alejandro in the final 2. She was certainly the lesser of the 2 evils to win it all, and played it well. Heather's growth was fantastic to watch long term. Sure, she's still a jerk, but she doesn't try to use cheap tactics as much and is willing to side with the good more than the bad when it's a must. So she has to move into the Sweet 16 over Jeff here for those reasons alone. Next, we have Cody versus Bridget. While Cody really did not have a lot of screen time in the first 2 seasons of Total Drama, he was one of the fan favorites in the cast. For good reasons too. He's essentially the lovable loser, much like the Daniel Bryan and Mick Foley to all those wrestling nuts out there. While his time on the island were cut short due to injury, he did have some moments in the season that won many fans' heart over. Mainly being the third wheel of Trent's and Gwen's relationship during that season. He had a pretty big crush on her, and wanted to do everything he can to impress her. However, he was denied that chance because she fell in love with someone else. His other moments were kissing another man in his sleep and, creating a magnetic ball. Cool. He was an extra in action, so we'll skip ahead to his time in the World Tour. Much like with Justin, he was developed heavily in the World Tour, and a lot of his development evolved around Sierra. Sierra is essentially one of those creepy, stalkish fangirls of Cody that tries to do everything she can to get in his pants. In the end, she did help bring his self-confidence up, and they did become good friends by the end of the season. In his eyes, anyways. And there were more times where Cody saved Gwen from the side eyes of her teammates because of more relationship troubles, and boy, will we get to that! So even though he was not featured much in the island, he was used very well in the World Tour, and his personality overall really makes him a strong candidate. Now for Bridget, she was featured in all 3 seasons of the show. She's your typical surfer girl who is one of the more chiller contestants. However, I can't say she was one of the more impactful players during the game. Throughout the island, she was more of a klutz than anything else. We can't forget about how when not quite famous, she had her leg caught on a light which caused it to fall on Courtney and later barfing on everyone. Her relationship with Jeff was a thing, but I don't consider it very strong. Her story arc is heavily revolved in that relationship. Heck, even when she was eliminated, it was dealing with Jeff going on with the bros before hoes trope, which is something he couldn't abide by. In action, as stated before, she was one of the first to eliminate it with Jeff for trying to eat each other's faces off. She and Jeff became the co-host for the Aftermath, And you already know about their relationship struggles because Jeff turned into a jerk. In the world tour, she turned into his, I have a boyfriend, but I'm going to fall for you because damn, you're hot, chick. Which caused her to get eliminated after making out with a pole for being fooled by Alejandro. So, when she made it to the aftermath, she made an apology song to Jeff, and of course he forgives her. While she technically has much more screen time than her opponent, I don't think she was developed as well. Her only real arc in development was with Jeff, and they're not the strongest couple in the bunch. So I'm going to side with the Codemeister for being a more relatable character and having a good development of self-confidence. For the next battle, we have Trent versus Eva. Let me be real here. This one is the most unappealing match in the preliminary. Why? Because one character I do not like at all, and the other has little to nothing going for them. Anyways, let's start off with the guy I'm probably going to rant on. Trent. My god. You wanna know why I don't like him? 1. He has only one narrative about him. He's the dream guy for Gwen, but he is the dumbest man I've ever seen. In the beginning, he reels you in with this whole sweet musician stench to make you hope that Gwen will get together with this guy. Then this moron decided to believe in Heather. Heather, of all people! The woman who has played everyone like a fiddle. The woman that nobody likes. That Gwen has said crap about Trent. And here's the stinger. He lets Heather, the woman that is his girl's nemesis, the woman that has been straight bullying his girl the entire time, kiss him! Really? That's what we're doing? At the end of the island, she forgives him for making these dumb mistakes, and they make up because I guess everyone seems to be in a forgiving mood. Oh, and wait, there's more. Because 2, as I said before, he's a freaking idiot! In action, he gets all jelly on Gwen because she's finding similarities with Duncan, and boy, I can't wait to get into that mess later on. This caused Trent to do everything to win his girl's heart back, even to the point where he's throwing challenges because screw the million, I want to reach for that sweet gothic pussy, which got his butt dumped and eliminated from the competition. Serves him right. And you know what the messed up part is? They tried to make Gwen the villain in this. Yeah, I got nothing else to say about this. If I say any more, this one will probably be taken down too. Much love, Viacom. Next up is Eva. What's there to say about Eva? Well, she's an athletic freak with a very serious attitude. She was the first to get manipulated by Heather that got her voted off very early. She did return later on in the island with only one goal in mind, taking out Bridget for being one of the best players to get her the boot. While DJ, Duncan, and Jeff were there, and Heather was the reason why she was put in that position. Cool beans. Other than that, there really isn't much to talk about with her, so regrettably, Trent must move on. Our 5th match will be Harold and Lindsay, 2 players on the exact opposite of the attractive scale, in this style's standards. Starting off with Harold, I do see him as one of the more comedic characters that throws a lot of surprises out of his sleeve. He's my favorite character growing up out of the 22. His arc with Duncan was told very well with the bully demeanor being used. While some of the torture was understanding if you look at Duncan's perspective in an episode or 2, but the constant jabbing reached its limit when Harold saw Duncan and Courtney get together. This made him furious and it caused him to screw with the votes to eliminate Courtney as revenge against Duncan. However, he was eliminated shortly after because he failed the challenge because of Heather's titties. Before he left, he was surprisingly the man that confessed his love to Lashana, and they got together. Sure. In action, he played a pretty big role. His trust of Lashana was challenged when she manipulated her team to give her the reward. Plus, he finally stood up to Duncan on numerous occasions throughout the action. He was a very strong competitor that was sadly eliminated in the final 5. Mainly, people thought he could win it all during this time because of how well established he was during that season. In the World Tour, he wasn't there for very long, but he still left valiantly. He decided to eliminate himself from the competition after losing his team a victory with his subpar commercial formed by his ego that was challenged by Alejandro. For all 3 seasons, he had strong moments and his extremely dorky personality gives him a good shot. For Lindsay, she may be hotter than the desert, but she's dumb as nails. She started off in the island teaming up with Heather and Beth to form an alliance. Unlike Beth's desperation of finding someone to hang with, Lindsay truly thinks that Heather was her best female friend for life. She did everything that Heather ordered with little to no question. During that time, she started falling for Tyler, a jock who is more of a klutz than anything else. Heather was not a big fan of the two being together and tells her not to be with him, which is another example of how skewed this friendship is. Lindsay was eliminated because of the technicality of the rules for the bike racing challenge. If you're the last to cross, you're eliminated. She asked for Heather to help, but obviously Heather refuses, and we got the biggest scene of the island of all time.
You really are mean! And all that bad stuff people say about you is true! Like how you're a two-faced, backstabbing, lying little...
So beautiful. In action, she also played a more predominant role. Her arc for this season is trying to find some sort of backbone in her to be the team leader. However, she struggled trying to find a way to balance of shouting out orders and being supportive of her team. Didn't help when Courtney came back and took over everything. And what better way to get eliminated than to accidentally vote for yourself when you're not looking at the touchpad. Her experience in World Tour... They really played the idiot card here with the whole, "Where's Tyler? Oh hi Taylor" gag for most of her time there. When she finally realized who Tyler was, it was thrown down the toilet when she got eliminated 2 episodes later. While her one moment in the island was legendary and will go down as one of the most memorable scenes in total drama history, I'm going to give it to Harold. He wasn't plenty of moments throughout the series and he was able to grow more in development in my opinion. And our final matchup of the day is Courtney versus Gwen. Whew, what a way to end the preliminary round. Not only do both of these characters have enough power in them to make it to the finals, but a lot of their arcs are intertwined with each other too. Both characters have been in all 3 competitions, both characters have hooked up and broke off with their respective relationships, plus both are involved in a hefty love triangle. This is going to be a tough decision no matter how you look at it. Which means we're going to have to dig in deep here. Gwen is easily another fan favorite within the cast. In the island, she started off as being a girl who was tired of being here as soon as she walked on the island. Until... Trent. As I said before, most of her arc in the island is involved with the guitar-playing Bonehead. The two were 2 peas in a pod until Heather came along to play spoiler on the relationship by setting up a plan to suck Trent's face off in front of Gwen to send him packing. But they did make up by the end of the season. And speaking of Heather, Gwen's relationship with her is Mean Girl Central. They hated each other from the get-go. They do everything in their power to take each other out, and seeing Gwen finally take care of her demons in the final 3 was great. She also had some small moments as well with Jeff that were heartwarming as well. She was easily a character a lot of people can relate to in some way, and even though she didn't win, she was easily the most developed character in the island. In the action, however, a bit of a different story here. For whatever stupid reason, they decided to use this season to plant some seeds for the World Tour in her arc. Their way of doing that is making her relationship with Trent a freaking roller coaster. As I said with the Ed Sheeran wannabe, Gwen and Duncan shared similar interests with each other. This caused Trent to get super jealous and do everything he can to win her heart back, by throwing the games for her and make it an easier road to the million. She wanted him to stop, but he wouldn't listen to reason. So she rightfully broke it off because she can't deal with those extremely high standards. Of course, when the opposite team was aware that their boy was causing them challenges, they used that to their advantage to force Gwen to throw for them as an eye for an eye. Didn't take long for her team to find out and ended up getting eliminated too. Then we get to her time on the second Aftermath show, and the ultimate seed that's been planted is...
Oh yeah, I get that up close and personal with all of my friends. Note the, 1 centimeter distance between their lips.
Man, can we just... So when the World Tour occurs, her relationship status turned into an unfortunate love triangle because of her relationship with Duncan becoming more than just friends. Because of that kiss being ratted out by Tyler, Courtney's relationship with Gwen turns incredibly rotten from that point on. This really did leave a sour taste in my mouth because what happened in the World Tour. It completely villainizes Gwen to stir the pot just to stir it. It's really a disappointment with how this came about from Gwen and Duncan just deciding to make out with each other upon Duncan's return to the game. It just seems like they're trying to force fans to hate Gwen, and it's poorly executed at that, considering that Duncan's then girlfriend at the time was a complete annoyance in Courtney. And speaking of Courtney, Gwen failed to beat her in the elimination challenge due to her leaf allergy, so that's how she was booted off. Now on to the girl who has been a thorn in many folks' sides when it comes to total drama. She starts off with a very self-centered and cocky attitude in the island, going on and on about how the team needs her, that she was a counselor in training. She tries her best to play the rules and immediately nominates herself as the leader of the team. However, all of their teammates grew tired of her uptight attitude to listen to what she has to say. It's especially the case with Duncan. Uh-oh, tsundere alert! The two of them had clashing personalities, with Courtney being the goody two-shoes and Duncan being the rebellious punk. As the season went on, the seed planting continued to go on between the two. When they finally decided to hit it off, she was unfairly eliminated from the competition due to a revenge-seeking Harold, though she did give him his just desserts. In the Island Special, she couldn't get a spot in the action. And you think that was it for her? No, because she went from a tsundere to a Mary Sue. Somehow, she was able to sue Total Drama successfully and force herself into the competition with certain privileges that the other castmates could not have. She was resilient enough to make it to the final four, but was eliminated because of Duncan being tired of her high demands, which made Courtney cut ties with Duncan. But that didn't last long as the two get back together after the finals were over. When the world tour started, her relationship with Gwen started to grow and they became close friends. Until Duncan showed back up and didn't take long for Duncan to try and suck Gwen's face off. Woo! This caused Courtney to go ballistic against both to the point where she was obsessed with taking them down. She was able to outlast Gwen but was eliminated later with Blaney. Of course, this was going to be tough since both characters are arguably the most developed in the entire series. Although both don't have any other arc developments during their runs that isn't related to their lovey-dovey relationships. Also, they both have some serious issues in their development. Gwen's issues have to be with how she was forced in the villain role for no reason. With Trent literally throwing the game for Gwen with no convincing from her, she gets booed because of it. Then, for whatever reason, they decided to plug her in a ridiculous love triangle with Duncan and Courtney. Something they just really wanted to push just because they needed something interesting. It felt forced and nothing came into fruition for her in the long run. As for Courtney, my issue with her is her stint as a Mary Sue in the action. I'm not particularly fond of how the Mary Sue is used for a lot of shows. This was no different. It doesn't help that she was more of an annoying character in the island either. With her suing her way into the competition and not really getting her just desserts like Heather did in the island, my distaste just grew more and more. Plus, as I said with Gwen, the love triangle did no favors for her either. Considering that her relationship with Duncan was the only thing that kept her afloat as a character, when that ended, she regressed into being Alejandro's plaything before her inevitable elimination. In the end, I'm still going to have to give it to Courtney. Before everyone gets head over heels for this decision, here's why Courtney is going ahead. Her path at this point of the series is a lot fitting for her overall than Gwen's path. While I don't like the Mary Sue thing, it's fitting for her because of her uptight personality and her obsession for winning. Even when she desperately wanted to take out Gwen, she did it because she lost her man. She will do just about anything to achieve her goal, and she never steered away from that. For Gwen, on the other hand, her character decisions do not mesh well at all, especially in both the action and the World Tour seasons. How can you go from quote-unquote backstabbing Trent by breaking up with him and telling his team to vote him off for his actions and regretting it later on, to making out with one of your friend's boyfriend and saying that it was worth it? There are more natural ways of villainizing Gwen than what they decided, and that is what's going to make it her downfall. Courtney will wrap up the final spot in the Sweet 16. Did you agree with the winners of the preliminary round? If not, Who do you think should have won and why? Which matchups in the Sweet 16 are you excited to see? You can chat about it in the comment section below. If you'd want to be one of the first to see the next round, click the subscribe and the bell icon to get the latest from me. Until then, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.